Well, Wednesday next week will bring the climax of, I think, probably the most fractious and bitter election campaigning since 1994. We've had everything thrown at us, particularly Nelson Mandela's name, as this vast array of political parties. So many of them try to cash in on the Mandela name, try to appropriate some of the prestige of the icon. We've even had theology involved, heaven and hell. I don't know how many of you noticed that President Jacob Zuma actually said that anyone who deserted, any ANC voter that is, that deserted the ANC would be heading for the everlasting bonfire. I assume he means the National Union Metal Workers members and people like the Food and Allied Workers members who in 6 provinces, or the delegates of their conferences, voted to leave the alliance. But then perhaps not, because you see some of them may still vote for the ANC or may even abstain because they see there's no alternative to the governing party. So perhaps that'll leave them with a curse of purgatory, I don't know, or limbo or whatever. But what it has done is brought to the fore, as far as I can see, that argument again about political affiliation. For more than 20 years now, many trade unionists and commentators, including myself, have actually argued that by aligning themselves to a political party in power, and therefore the largest employer in the land, is a matter of reneging on the core principle of trade unionism, of principled unity, and that this would lead ultimately to disarray. Now we have a classic example of disarray in the SABC debacle. The COSATU union, the Communications Workers Union, CWU, ends up cozying up to Hlaudi Motsoeneng, the boss at SABC, who's been found with the rest of the management by the Public Protector Thuli Modonsela to be responsible for maladministration and the abuse of power. Then we have the Media Workers Association, who was financially weak but allowed itself to be frozen out of the SABC. And this left the field wide open to 2 unions who are not part of the grand militant anti-apartheid tradition. In fact, 2 unions who have their roots in the previous regime, particularly Solidarity, which actually emerges from the Mynwerkersunie more than 100 years ago, a desperately, fanatically sometimes, segregationist union that has now, of course, like everyone else, transformed to a degree within this new dispensation. So the BIMAWU, as they are known, the Broadcast, Electronic and Media and Allied Workers Union, with only 1,086 members, and Solidarity have now become effectively the standard bearers of freedom of expression and organization at the SABC. And what is happening now at the same time as the election coming up is what we see as the final battle for what has been called the soul of the SABC. Now, no matter what happens in the election and the way the court battles eventually pan out over the SABC, which very good examples of how our constitutional democracy is actually working at that level. Whatever happens, there are going to be some bitter recriminations, particularly among COSATU unions and the members of the Alliance. Anyhow, that is what I think I shall focus on in my Inside Labour column this week, which you can access on this platform, Fin24, tomorrow, and a version of which will appear in the City Press business section on Sunday. In the meantime, over to you again. Your comments, your criticisms, your suggestions, whatever you want to say, to editor@fin24.com. That's editor@fin24.com. And for this week, that's all from me. Cheers.